I was 27 when my world collapsed. After losing my job, my relationship, and my apartment all within 3 months, I found myself sitting on the floor of a friend's spare bedroom, surrounded by cardboard boxes containing what was left of my life. That night, through tears that wouldn't stop, I asked the universe a simple question: how do I heal from this? Little did I know that this rock-bottom moment would become the foundation for the most profound transformation of my life, one built on spiritual healing practices that I had previously dismissed as woo-woo nonsense. What I discovered in the months that followed changed everything, and it might just change everything for you too. The journey to healing isn't what most people think. It's not about positive affirmations plastered on bathroom mirrors or forcing yourself to just be happy. Real spiritual healing runs much deeper, addressing wounds we often don't even realize we carry. And in today's world, where anxiety and depression rates are skyrocketing, understanding this path has never been more crucial. We're living in a time where traditional approaches to wellness often fall short. Medication and therapy certainly have their place, but many people find themselves still searching for something more: a deeper connection, a sense of purpose, or simply relief from the constant noise in their heads. That's where spiritual healing enters the picture, offering tools and perspectives that complement conventional methods and sometimes provide breakthroughs where other approaches have stalled. But what exactly is spiritual healing? At its core, it's about reconnecting with the essence of who you are beyond your thoughts, emotions, and circumstances. It's about tapping into something larger than yourself, whether you call that energy, consciousness, God, or simply the universe. The beauty of spiritual healing is that it doesn't require you to adopt any specific religious beliefs. It's accessible to everyone, regardless of background or belief system. Life has a way of throwing challenges at us that can leave even the strongest people feeling broken. Take Sarah, a client I worked with last year. She was a successful executive who seemed to have it all together on the outside. But after her mother's death, she found herself unable to sleep, constantly anxious, and questioning everything about her life. "I feel like I'm drowning," she told me during our first session. "I've tried everything: therapy, medication, even a career change, but nothing is working." Or consider James, a veteran who returned from deployment physically intact, but carrying invisible wounds that manifested as anger, isolation, and an inability to connect with his family. "I don't know who I am anymore," he admitted. "The person I was before is gone, and I don't know how to get back to him." These stories might sound extreme, but they represent variations of what many of us experience: loss, trauma, chronic stress, health challenges, relationship breakdowns. These universal human experiences can shake us to our core and leave us wondering how to move forward. Even less dramatic circumstances, like feeling stuck in a meaningless job, experiencing a midlife crisis, or simply sensing that something is missing in life, can trigger a profound need for healing. What makes these challenges particularly difficult is that they often create a disconnection from ourselves, from others, and from any sense of meaning or purpose. We become fragmented, operating on autopilot, going through the motions of life without truly living. This disconnection is what spiritual healing aims to address. The turning point in my own journey came about 6 months after that night on my friend's floor. I had been half-heartedly trying various healing modalities, reading self-help books, attending a support group, even trying meditation through an app, though I could never sit still for more than 2 minutes. Nothing seemed to be working, and I was starting to believe that maybe this was just how life would be from now on. A gray existence where I functioned but never really thrived. Then a colleague invited me to a weekend retreat focused on energy healing and meditation. I almost didn't go. The whole thing sounded too out there for my practical mind. But desperation is a powerful motivator, and I was desperate enough to try almost anything. The retreat was held at a simple facility in the mountains, with no cell service and minimal amenities. On the first evening, the facilitator, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, asked us to participate in a guided meditation focused on connecting with our breath and body. "Your body holds the wisdom your mind has forgotten," she told us. "Your job is simply to listen." For 2 hours, we sat in silence, occasionally guided by her voice to notice sensations, emotions, or thoughts without judgment. At first, I felt nothing but impatience and discomfort, but somewhere around the 90-minute mark, something shifted. As I focused on my breath moving in and out, I suddenly felt a wave of grief rise up from my chest. Not the intellectual awareness of grief I'd been carrying, but a physical sensation that moved through me like a current. And then, unexpectedly, I began to cry. Not the controlled tears I'd allowed myself in private moments, but deep, body-shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere beyond me. The facilitator later explained that this was a release of energy that had been stored in my body, energy that needed to move in order for healing to begin. That night marked the beginning of my real healing journey. It wasn't an instant fix, far from it, but it was the first time I experienced the power of connecting with something beyond my thinking mind, something that felt like a deeper truth or wisdom. It was the first time I understood that healing wasn't about fixing what was broken, but about becoming whole by embracing all parts of myself, including the pain. In the months that followed, I immersed myself in various spiritual healing practices. I learned about energy centers in the body and how trauma can create blockages that manifest as physical or emotional symptoms. I discovered the power of mindfulness, not just as a trendy wellness practice, but as a way of being present with whatever arises without resistance. I explored sound healing, breathwork, and movement practices that helped release what my body had been holding. Most importantly, I began to understand that spiritual healing isn't about escaping reality or transcending human experience. It's about fully embodying it. It's about developing the capacity to be with all of life, the joy and the suffering, the clarity and the confusion, with an open heart and a grounded presence. The practices themselves vary widely, and what works for one person might not work for another. For some, meditation becomes a cornerstone practice, creating space between thoughts and cultivating awareness. For others, energy healing modalities like Reiki, acupuncture, or sound baths provide access to deeper levels of relaxation and release. Movement practices like yoga, qigong, or ecstatic dance can help process emotions stored in the body. And ancient wisdom traditions offer frameworks for understanding our place in the larger web of life. What all these approaches share is an understanding that we are more than our physical bodies and thinking minds, that there are dimensions to human experience that can't be measured or quantified, but can be felt and known directly through experience. This understanding doesn't require blind faith or abandoning critical thinking. In fact, some of the most powerful spiritual healing occurs when we bring our full intelligence to the process, questioning, discerning, and integrating insights rather than simply accepting dogma or following gurus. The science is catching up too. Research in fields like psychoneuroimmunology and epigenetics is revealing the profound connections between our thoughts, emotions, and physical health. Studies on meditation and mindfulness show measurable changes in brain structure and function, and the emerging understanding of trauma, how it's stored in the body and passed down through generations, aligns with what many spiritual traditions have taught for centuries. But the journey isn't linear, and that's something I wish someone had told me earlier. There were times when I felt like I was making tremendous progress, experiencing insights and emotional breakthroughs that seemed to change everything. And then there were the inevitable setbacks, periods when old patterns re-emerged, when meditation felt impossible, when I questioned whether any real change was happening at all. I remember one particularly difficult period about a year into my healing journey. I had been feeling good, more present, more connected, more alive. Then a series of stressful events at work triggered old anxiety patterns, and I found myself spiraling into familiar thought loops and emotional reactions. It felt like all my progress had been erased overnight, and I was devastated. When I shared this with my meditation teacher, she smiled knowingly. "This isn't a setback," she said. "This is the practice. Can you bring the same presence and compassion to this experience that you bring to the pleasant ones? Can you be curious about what's happening rather than judging it as failure?" Her words shifted something fundamental in my understanding. I began to see that spiritual healing isn't about reaching some perfect state where challenges no longer affect us. It's about developing a different relationship with all of life's experiences, approaching them with awareness, compassion, and a willingness to learn and grow. This perspective has been essential in navigating the ongoing journey. There have been many more ups and downs since then, moments of profound connection and clarity, as well as periods of confusion and struggle. But the difference is that I no longer see the difficult times as evidence that I'm doing something wrong or that the healing isn't working. Instead, I recognize them as opportunities to practice presence and self-compassion, to deepen my understanding, and to integrate lessons at new levels. What I've learned through all of this is that spiritual healing is less about adding something new to your life and more about removing the obstacles to what's already there, your inherent wholeness, wisdom, and capacity for joy. It's about clearing away the conditioning, limiting beliefs, and unprocessed emotions that keep you disconnected from your true nature and from life itself. This doesn't mean that external circumstances don't matter or that we should simply accept injustice or abuse. On the contrary, true spiritual healing empowers us to take more effective action in the world because we're no longer operating from unconscious patterns or unhealed wounds. We become more discerning about where to direct our energy, more authentic in our relationships, and more aligned with our deepest values. The most beautiful part of this journey has been witnessing how my own healing has rippled outward, affecting my relationships, work, and community in ways I never could have orchestrated through willpower alone. As I've become more present and compassionate with myself, I've naturally become more present and compassionate with others. As I've learned to listen to my own deeper wisdom, I've become better at hearing others. And as I've reconnected with a sense of meaning and purpose beyond my personal concerns, I've found more authentic ways to contribute to the world. This is the promise of spiritual healing. Not a perfect life free from challenges, but a more awake, engaged, and meaningful experience of being human. It's about remembering who you really are beneath the stories, conditioning, and wounds. It's about coming home to yourself and to life. If you're feeling called to explore this path, here are a few suggestions to begin. Start with simple mindfulness practices that help you become more aware of your thoughts, emotions, and body sensations without judgment. Even 5 minutes a day of sitting quietly and noticing your breath can begin to create space and awareness. Pay attention to what resonates with you personally. There are countless approaches to spiritual healing, and what works for someone else might not work for you. Trust your own experience and intuition. Find community. While much of the inner work is done alone, having support, guidance, and connection with others on a similar path can be invaluable. This might be a meditation group, a spiritual center, or even an online community of like-minded seekers. Be patient and gentle with yourself. Healing isn't linear, and there will be times when it feels like nothing is happening, or even like you're moving backward. These periods are often when the deepest integration is occurring beneath the surface. Remember that spiritual healing isn't separate from everyday life. The goal isn't to transcend your humanity, but to fully embody it, to bring presence, compassion, and wisdom to your relationships, work, challenges, and joys. As you embark on or continue your own healing journey, know that you're not alone. Millions of people around the world are waking up to the limitations of a purely materialistic worldview and rediscovering ancient wisdom about who we are and how we heal. This collective awakening is happening at precisely the time when our world needs it most. I'd love to hear about your experiences with spiritual healing. What practices have been most helpful for you? What challenges have you encountered? What questions do you have about this path? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's create a conversation that supports each other's growth and healing. If you found value in this video, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content on spiritual growth, healing, and conscious living. And if you know someone who might benefit from this message, sharing is one of the most powerful ways to spread healing in our world. Thank you for being here, for your courage in facing your own healing journey, and for contributing to the greater healing that our world so desperately needs right now. Remember, The light you uncover within yourself ultimately helps illuminate the path for others. We're in this together.